Lincoln, I wanted to ask you about Caleb's recruitment. I know that you said that he was willing to walk on, but when you had Brock committed, were you in touch with Caleb at all? And after the decommitment, how awkward or weird was it to have to go from one highly recruited quarterback to another, or was it?
Not at the time in the class. We were just going to take one quarterback, and we had as you mentioned, had a kid that jumped on it first. I think we only had two offers out there, and had a kid jump on it first, and so we stayed. We informed Caleb and his family like we would anybody else we were recruiting at the time that of our situation, and they stayed in touch a little bit with Coach Beamer as it went through, as that was his part of his recruiting area. But I kind of stayed out of it, just loyalty to the guys in the class, especially the position where you're taking one, has been something that we've always tried to be. We try to be upfront and honest with all parties, those that did commit to us and those that didn't. And and then obviously when we lost that commitment, Caleb was a very, very obvious choice to go back to. And then honestly, that time kind of played out. And throughout that time, getting a chance to see some of Caleb's improvement. We thought already thought he was a really good player. We wouldn't have offered him, but thought he had made a pretty big jump as far as just kind of growing, performing. Like I said, obviously happy with the way it worked out. And yeah, they came up and visited right before COVID shut the world down, and it was a good fit for both sides.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Ryan Aber.
Yeah, Lincoln. Obviously, this season the schedule fell a little bit differently for y'all than it has been since you've been here. How does that affected your bye week schedule and what you're trying to do this week versus most years where you've got it really early in the season?
It's a little different, being that we've played the majority of our schedule already, and honestly, the biggest thing that's changed it is this year we have this. We had it last year too around the presidential elections, but we've got this mandatory day off today, which is I guess in some ways you could be happy that it worked out during a bye week, but I don't know. The flip side of it is it's kind of a pain. It's because it's one day during the middle of the week, so we've got all of our coaches out recruiting today, and then everybody will be back in tomorrow for practice and Thursday morning practice, and then back out again. So it's we've kind of had to make it work around having a NCAA mandatory off day. But yeah, not a ton different. There's a few little things here and there that we'll do as far as kind of recovery and getting some guys back, but still going to get a lot of work on the field. Still going to work our young guys or some of our guys that maybe aren't playing as much right now a ton, and then address a lot of things that we need to as a team to get better and play our best ball here at the end.
Is it a good thing in your mind that this mandatory off day is coming in a bye week versus a game week?
We had it last year during a game week. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know there were some appeals by some of the schools in our league to be able to practice today, and I honestly don't know. I haven't heard if those went through or not. So, I mean, the one good thing is if you're doing it during a game week, at least your opponent's got to do it too. So it's just something to deal with. I don't know if it's an advantage or disadvantage. You could honestly probably make points on both sides.
Appreciate it, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Bailey.
Lincoln, I was just curious. Do you even have the slightest intrigue about where your football team will be placed in the first college football playoff poll tonight, or is it still just conversation pieces for outside the locker room until that first or that final poll in December?
Yeah, to me, it's just meaningless stuff to kill the time until we get to the end. I mean, I think great examples go back look where we were ranked in the first CFP poll all the years that we've been to the CFP. I mean, it just the biggest games, the best games, the most important games all across the country are still yet to be played, and so there's a lot of good teams that are vying for it, and the best ones tend to rise up this time of year, and and separate themselves, and that'll happen again this year. And like I said, where we sit right now, and and when I say we, just college football as a whole and all the rankings, where they sit right now and where they're going to be here in 3 or 4 weeks is going to be a big, big difference. So if we win, then what they put out tomorrow is not going to matter, or today, whenever it is. Shows you how much I'm paying attention to it.
Thanks, Lincoln. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Jesse Crittenden?
Hey, Lincoln, thanks for being here. I've kind of got a different question for you, but you guys just haven't had a ton of kickoff returns the last couple of years. That's kind of been college football wide. And there's been different proposals to get rid of kickoffs and onside kicks and replace it with, the scoring team having the ball at 4th and 15 on their side of the field. What do you think of those proposals? And is that something that you would be in favor of or oppose if that was ever implemented in college football?
It'd be a drastic change to the game. I don't know. I could say I'd be totally opposed, but I think we've, they've done what the rules were intended to do. They give you a chance to return, but obviously the rules in some ways do entice you to really think about it, and certainly to take more fair catches and just take the ball at the 25-yard line. So it's. You've got some of the others. You've seen some of the other leagues do the deal where the kickoff team, can't leave until the ball's kicked. There's some other ways to do it. I know the XFL did some different things as well that I thought were pretty interesting. So I hope we don't remove it because there are certain game situations where it's huge and it's still not an easy play to defend or execute. We had some. Case in point, last year at the end of the season, we had some really big kickoff returns in those last couple of games that were, big time plays for us. And so I hope we can keep finding a way to maybe make it safer, but not totally remove it from our game.
So just a quick follow-up. Is the idea of having the ball at 4th and 15 after you score, just as an offensive coach, does that interest you at all in terms of strategy, or does that just seem like a gimmick?
If that's what they decide, we'll do it. But I guess on the front end, just kind of just from a pure football perspective, it seems a little gimmicky to me.
Gotcha. Appreciate it, Lincoln.
You got it.
Godfrey Spillo?
Lincoln, last year you praised Jaden for the way he stayed mentally engaged as he battled everything he went through. What's it been like for Theo Weiss? Has it been tough to keep him mentally, physically sharp, and is he close to where maybe he can make an impact down the stretch right here?
It's been. It has been a challenge. It's he missed a good portion of spring, obviously, and then had the injury here, early in camp, and so it has been tough. It's guy wants to be out there. He's been a good player for us. He's been a good team guy. So. But he's worked hard and he's rehabbed hard. I think he's taking advantage of some of that time to really work on some of the other aspects of his game, really work hard on his body, his strength. So he looks good physically. Yeah, and he's progressing really well. I don't know that there's a 100% plan in place yet, but we're getting close, and I do think I can see. I can certainly see a clear path and defined path to him being able to help us, here in this last stretch of the season. I just don't know exactly when it'll be yet, but we're getting close.
John Hoover?
Hey, Lincoln. As he's kind of gained more and more acclaim, I think Caleb's won a couple of national awards this week, previously. A couple of Heisman voters, more than a couple of Heisman voters, saying they're strongly considering putting him on their ballot. The College Football Playoff Committee likes high-profile players in there, eventually get in their playoff. What I'm wondering is if you've given any thought to making Caleb available for media interviews, maybe special occasions, maybe, or are you going to stick to like a hard, fast, no freshman rule whatsoever?
Yeah, John. It's been our rule. I'm not typically one to pull something in the middle of in the middle of the season. I'm always open to looking at new things, and if there's something I think that could help players or help our program, I certainly wouldn't avoid taking a look at it. But I've just never been one to want to change, much right in the middle of it. So we'll see how it evolves. I mean, if I at some point see that it'll be beneficial for our team or just makes a lot of sense to do it, I'll look at it. But right now I think we're going to stick with where our policy is. And honestly, that's again, it's not a power thing. It's not an ego thing. It's these guys are. It comes from two areas. One, these guys are young. We're building them up. We're teaching them, and then also I think a little bit of. I think we've always had in our program, and that you got to earn those. There are a lot of guys roll through here. There's been a lot of really good freshman players roll through here. Our program is. There's a lot of things kind of built on earning the trust, earning the respect. And the opportunity to do things like that. So we'll see how it evolves, but right now we're pretty comfortable with where we're at.
Bob, just for instance, used to have a policy, no reason to roll a freshman out until they've actually done something
Right.
and earned it. Is that something you're considering as well?
It's possible. I'm just going to let it evolve. But I mean, it's. I wouldn't take anything off the table. Like I said, I don't have a. Again, my only comes from, what I think is best for the team and for the individual. And if I ever get to a point with him or anybody else where I feel like there would be a benefit, then I would have no problem doing it. But I can't just do it just because people want to talk to him, And I understand that everybody does. I understand that's their jobs too. But the first description of my job is to do the best thing I can for the team and for the individuals within it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Harry Trammell.
Lincoln, 2 straight Sundays, we've had a Big 12 coaching change. I was surprised at Matt Wells. I was shocked at Gary Patterson. Is there something going on when COVID hit and then the Big 12 upheaval? I mean, it looks like finances are, a bigger priority than ever, and yet people aren't batting an eye at buying coaches out and making changes. Is something going on that wasn't here a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
That's a great question. If did COVID have an impact? Did some of the future conference realignment have an impact? And I mean, in those two situations, I don't have any information that would suggest one way or another. But it's now it feels strange. It does. We've had a league that we've had some pretty long tenured and historically great coaches in this league, and to see 2 guys out mid-season like that, and one with a winning record and one is undoubtedly the greatest coach in the history of his school. I don't know all the circumstances behind it, but seeing Gary Patterson go out in the middle of a season is just. I don't know what to think of it, man. I was sick when I heard the news, to be completely honest. I know it's a tough business, and I know, we gotta, our jobs are scrutinized, and we're big boys and can live with big boy decisions. But man, I mean, what he did at that place, and not even finish out the year, I don't know. Like I said, regarding Matt previous weeks, it's not good for our game, not good for our league. I don't know. We got to hope we can find a better solution than this, because I'm afraid it's going to become the trend, and everybody's. I think it's probably more what we talked about the other week. If you're asking maybe a reason why, is I think everybody's scared they're going to miss out on who they want to hire. And we may have to look at something, maybe like the pros do or something like that, that really draw some hard lines on when those things can happen and when they can't, because that's. You get Gary Patterson not finishing a season at that place he built, man. That ain't right. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Aaron Emig.
This wasn't what I was going to ask you, Lincoln, but just as a follow-up to Barry's question, there's been some conjecture that it's an unintended consequence of the earlier signing period. Administrators want to put the wheels in motion fast so that they can, have a transition in place for recruits. Maybe that, I don't know if you've heard that in your industry, but is that a possibility? Perhaps?
I think it's a fair point. I don't disagree that that's not a factor to some. I think it's a very fair point. It does. If you're in an administrator's shoes, you can understand that. But at the same time, I don't know. I just also look at you're trying to make your place more appealing, and is doing something like this make it more or less appealing? And I don't know. I mean, I just
Right.
you know, these are long-term deals, and these things are a lot bigger than one class. You know, especially in the age of the transfer portal now. You know, I mean, I think it does give you a chance to maybe make up if you do lose out on a few guys because of a coaching change. So, no, I think it is a factor, but I still, you know, just don't like the direction of it. Yeah.
Sure. Real quick, one more. I was actually originally going to ask you what Hoove did about Caleb and making him available. You've got fans and media, us for that matter, learning a lot about him as a player. That's becoming apparent. But because he's so new to your program, and because he hasn't been out front of cameras and microphones yet, we don't know anything about him as a guy, as a young dude.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a sense of just what kind of kid he is?
Yeah, sure. No, I think he's a lot like what you see on game day. He's a very unique kid. He's got kind of different interests. He's got a very unique but fun personality. He does a good job relating to different people. You know, whereas like sometimes you bring a guy in your program, you could tell he's really maybe comfortable around like maybe people from a similar background or from a similar part of the country as he is, but you know, the others, you can tell he's kind of trying to figure that out. You know, Caleb's kind of he kind of gets along with everybody. He can talk to anybody. He can have a conversation with he can have a conversation with my 5-year-old. He can have a conversation with anybody on our team. He can have a conversation with an adult and interact and be very personable. So he's got I think a unique ability to connect with different kinds of people. He's a football guy. I mean, he really is into it. Puts a lot of time into it. It's very very driven, but also can laugh, can joke, can have some fun, and doesn't. He takes it serious. He's got for a young guy, a pretty good balance of. Some young guys, you get in here and they're so tense, and they almost take it too serious, and they can't relax any. That you got to relax them. And then the flip side, and probably more often, you get a guy in here that doesn't know how to be businesslike when it's time to be businesslike. And he's got a pretty good feel for a young guy of he can be pretty serious and pretty into it, but also it doesn't tense him up. And there's certainly a relaxed side of him too. So hopefully that gives you some insight. He's a neat kid. He really is. Got a cool personality and a good way about him.
Okay. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Jason Young.
Hey, Lincoln. Wanted to ask you about Mario Williams. Just how impressed were you with his ability to contribute right away and be ready to roll coming back from injury? And did it kind of surprise you a little bit at just how quickly he was able to get back in the swing of things?
To be honest, it did. Yeah, I mean, even he didn't practice last Monday or Tuesday, and I mean Tuesday afternoon, I did not think he would be available for the game, and but then he made some really good progress and was able to do a few things on Wednesday. It was further along than what we expected, and just kept getting better throughout the week. So it was impressive to see a young guy come back off injury, and I mean, I think two parts of it. One, you know, mentally. He had a couple errors, but not many, but didn't show a whole lot of rust, you know, mentally. And then, you know, one of the big things you worry about is after an injury, you're going to come back and cut it loose, you know, or you're going to play hesitant or maybe favor that or be too conservative. And he certainly wasn't that. So, and it was important for us. So, I mean, to have him back was big. With a couple of guys obviously still out, so it was good to see, and what that does, and we tell all our guys, I mean that builds confidence as a coach. You know, that next time a guy gets nicked up, you know you can count on him to get back in the fold and be ready to play at a high level as soon as possible. So he did a really good job handling it.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Jenny Carlson.
Lincoln, you forgot the most interesting thing about Caleb. It's those nails.
Yeah, I didn't know how to explain them, so I figured I'd stay in a realm that I understand. So I've gotten to know the kid pretty well, but yeah, no, that's some of the quirks about his personality, I guess you'd say. He's got some fashion quirks and obviously some funky fingernail paintings. But hey, everybody's got their thing, right?
Safe to say you didn't have anything to do with that, then.
No, maybe I'll get him to put some mule shoe emblems or something like that on him next.
I don't know if they know anything about that.
No, I'll have to educate them. Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a little bit. I think it was maybe last week Garen mentioned in your press conference about you guys always seeming to really hit the accelerator late and just peak at the right time. When you look back on teams that you've been associated with, are there certain fingerprints that have allowed you guys to do that? Is it veterans? Is it, I mean, I don't know. Well, what do you sort of attribute that to as you look back on the teams that have done that so well?
You know, I think internal expectations is a big part of it. I think the expectation to be at our best, to continue to improve throughout the year. I mean, the cycle, I think, for a lot of teams, it's the cycle of the season and the constant grind and sometimes it gets repetitive and gets long, and I think it wears on a lot of teams. I think a lot of teams, sometimes lose their edge or lose kind of that climb that you're trying to accomplish. And I don't know, for us, it's like the time you can't wait to get to. I mean, you obviously want to play good early and mid part of the year, and they all matter. I mean, college football is not like these others. I mean, they all matter. And so, but there's just a certain sense around this program of you get to this time, this is our favorite time. Like, this is the best time of the year. I mean, this is, you work and do everything you can to put yourself in the middle of the hunt going into November. And so I think just the anticipation and expectations internally within the program are so high that the guys are ready to do it. We've had leadership that's been ready to be at their best at the end. So yeah, I would attribute it to that. Yeah, there's been obviously a lot of guys that have spearheaded that, but I don't know, it just always feels a little bit different around here this time of year. It just does. I can't explain it, but it's obviously been a real positive thing.
Sounds like it's definitely more mental.
100%.
It becomes physical, I know, but it sounds like it's definitely a mental.
100%. I just think it's your approach to it, and some teams are getting tired of the season, about ready for it to be over, and there's some teams that, this is the most fun part, and I hope this never ends. And we've typically been the second one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
James Hale.
Lincoln, you came into the year and you were so high on the defense and hoping the defense would take a jump, and then you had the injuries and things like that. Last week, you started to get guys back, and they began to resemble themselves, or it looked like it again. I'm curious if you think that the defense is still making that progress you were hoping. And as you watch the young guys that you've recruited, because you guys have done a great job recruiting on the defensive side, as you watch, what's your thoughts on the future of this defense moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think defensively, we played pretty well early this season. Obviously, won a lot of games on the backs of our defense early in the year, no question about that. We've had some points here, obviously, kind of through the middle part of the season where we've played really well. We've had some areas where we haven't played well. Has some of that had to do with not having some guys? Sure, it has, but also some of it has to do with just us playing at the level we expect. Because certainly, even with all the guys out, with the 11 that we're putting out there, we still feel and have felt very capable. So, I think if we can continue to prepare the way that we did last week, you continue to get a few more of these bodies back. I think we set ourselves up to play extremely well, and this is what they're going to remember you by. I mean, that's the winning first 9 and all that's great, but I mean, they're going to, this team will be remembered based on what it does here in the next couple of months. And so hopefully you feel like things are starting to align for us to play our best ball, and feel like we got the right group to do it. So yeah, I'm excited to watch us prepare and watch us really surge, because I do think we have it inside of us.
the young guys that you
Yeah.
watch on your Monday night thing? You're pretty impressed with those guys?
Yeah, excited about them. I am. I mean, I think there's, we've got, a handful of guys that obviously have contributed in a big way. Your Witters, your Stutzmans, your Downs. I mean, there's a number of those guys that have really stepped up. Bowman's, and then we've got, some of the young guys that have played some that I think are right on the verge of kind of getting over that hump and really playing, closer to their potential. And then there's several within the program that aren't playing yet that there's no doubt they're going to be really good players. I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, that's, there's so many. I mean, the majority of our best players defensively were guys that were like that. I mean, Nick Benito didn't touch the field as a freshman, Isaiah Thomas didn't touch the field as a freshman, So I mean, there's always some guys behind the scenes that you say, you know what, if he'll keep working, if he'll stay with it and continue to push, that he's got a really bright future. And there's a number of guys in that category right now.
Thanks, Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Coach has to get to another obligation. We've got one hand raised. We'll go to John Shin.
Yeah, Lincoln, your record in November speaks for itself, but you've kind of been lucky every year. You have a lot of high-profile games in November. How much do you think that has helped kind of keep this team focused as it heads down the stretch each and every year?
I don't know. I don't feel like that's been a huge part of it. I just think by nature, these games, and I understand what you're saying, we play good opponents or, other teams that are trying to make a run as well. But I don't feel like that's had a whole lot to do with it. I really don't. I think it's just been, when you're kind of focused on yourself and trying to make a run yourself, these games every game that you win creates a bigger opportunity the next week. And so, to me, it's more the teams of the past, and this team this year has done it better than any of them up to this point, as do what you have to do early in the season to put yourself in that position and then really go surge at the right time and take advantage of these opportunities as they get bigger and bigger. And so I think for our teams, it hasn't necessarily been the people we've played. It's just been the fact that that you've won and that you put yourself in a great position. If you keep doing it, you're going to have some unbelievable opportunities. So I felt that more than any anticipation for a certain, a group of opponents or any one opponent.